Okay, so we're going to talk about the Ayurvedic clock and dinacharya, or our daily routines. This will include our sleep cycles and lifestyle adjustments for each dosha. Maybe, okay. All right, so different doshas are prevalent in different times of the year. And so when the doshas are prevalent in our environment, then they will also be more prevalent in us because we are animals. We are affected by our environment. Whatever's happening in our environment affects us on a physical and physiological and psychological level. So Vata, the dosha that has the elements air and ether, is most found in fall or autumn, which might make sense because usually in the fall or the autumn, there's a lot of wind, there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of change, which Vata is responsible for. So Vata, and of course, this will change slightly depending on where you live in the world, but Vata in general is most prominent from September to about January. So the gunas of Vata are dry, light, and mobile. Those are some of the gunas. And all of those qualities will increase during this time of year. So many people this time of year will experience more restlessness, insomnia, anxiety, and variable digestion and elimination this time of year. So to balance that, we increase the moist, oily, and heavy qualities in our food and in the products we use, doing things like abhyanga more regularly will help to pacify this excess Vata. Vata is most prominent in the time of day and morning between 2 and 6 a.m/p.m. So generally, we will start to reach for our second cup of coffee or some sort of stimulant around midday. That's because Vata is the highest this time of day, and we get spacey and tired and need another push to get us through. So being tired midday is indicative of an imbalance, and coffee can actually exacerbate the problem because it stimulates the release of stress hormones and is really taxing to our adrenals when it's taken regularly and in too high of quantities. So the best thing to implement in the Vata time of day between 2 to 6 a.m., well, not 2 to 6 a.m., when Vata is highest and 2 to 6 p.m., the best thing to implement would be yoga nidra instead of coffee or instead of a stimulant. And that's because yoga nidra is actually rejuvenating. It's restoring and nourishing to your adrenals, and it gives you natural energy rather than artificial energy that's actually taxing your adrenals. Or an adrenal tonic in that time of day. So an adrenal tonic would be a nice warm being keyword, nourishing cocktail of, a beverage that has nice adaptogenic herbs in it to help your body deal with the tiredness, the fatigue, and naturally support its ability to adjust gracefully in this time of day. So Pitta, we find Pitta, right? It has the elements fire, a little bit of water. So Pitta is in the summer when it's the hottest. So around mid-May/June through August, mid-September. So again, it's going to affect our physiology. It's going to affect us psychologically and physically. This time of year, people can experience more heat rash or fatigue because it's just so hot, depending on where you live, that we're just burnt out. We just don't have energy. So pacifying pitta with cold and heavy qualities, in terms of heavy meaning, we'll look at this as more pacifying to the mobile qualities that are also associated with pitta. So it's not heavy in the sense of, in affecting more lethargy. It's heavy as in stabilizing rather than lethargy. So 10 to 2 a.m. and then 10 to 2 p.m. is when pitta is highest. This is the time of night when we get our second wind and usually stay up working on projects or watching a show. This is also the time where our body naturally detoxes. So in order to support that natural detox, we should be sleeping on an empty stomach and in bed by 9 to 10 p.m. And so some of the things that help to pacify pitta in terms of our food in the summer is to increase our fresh herbs that we're using. So things like fresh mint and cilantro, fresh coconut meat and coconut water, those are all great cooling and restoring foods that will cool us down and help pacify pitta. So the pitta time of day, when if we stay up till 10 or past 10, you'll find that second wind that comes along, and all of a sudden you're like, I can finish this project, or I can start a new project right now. And then we end up robbing ourselves of our body's natural detox process. We end up sleeping in later, and our whole rhythm gets thrown off. And so being in bed by 9:30, or being asleep by before 10 is really important if we want to be in harmony with the cycles of nature. When we're in harmony with the cycles of nature, then we have more power on our side to change our tendency or likelihood to be affected by diseases that are caused from being imbalanced or out of balance with the cycles of nature. So although there are people who are naturally morning people and naturally night owls, it is something that you can groom and teach yourself to, as much as you can, stick within these cycles, because they're the rhythms of nature, and the laws of nature affect everyone really strongly. I'm gonna go back to Vata for a second. As far as the 2 to 6 a.m., so this is when Vata is highest in the morning. And so people often wake up between this time because that's when our sleep is the lightest. And something that we're naturally going to be good at, or more able to access this time of day, or this time of the morning, 2 to 6 a.m., is a meditation practice. Because the ether element is higher, we are more able to access the psychic or the subtle realms that we're dipping into when we meditate. So meditating between 2 to 6 a.m. is super potent. In addition to Vata being higher, there's also a correlation between dawn and birth. And this goes way back into ancient Ayurvedic philosophy. But this correlation between dawn and birth says that we can heal traumas that occurred around our birth or around the beginning of our life in the time of day that is dawn. So when we meditate, when we're doing healing practices around dawn, that is correlating to the time in our life when we first came into the world. And that, I love that concept because it's just, it has, you know, kind of this romantic sense about it, but it's also this, you know, each morning we get another opportunity to heal and to nourish all the way back to that initial point when we came into the world. So I think that's really beautiful. So back to Pitta. So we talked about Pitta, time of night, and then this is our body's natural detox time. Starts at about 10 p.m. So we want to be in bed before then to let that happen, because it doesn't happen if we're not asleep. If our body's not detoxing, you can guess the domino effect of issues that comes with that. 10 to 2 a.m., this is when Pitta is the highest. And so we're the most analytical. We're the most, work driven at this time. So this is the time to do our most analytical and intellectual work. So this is the best time, 10 to 2 p.m. is when it's 10 in the morning till about 2 p.m. is when it's best to be doing our work, whatever that is. And it's super important that we also eat during this time because, again, because Pitta is highest, sorry, my tongue's getting twisted. Because Pitta is highest between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., our digestive fire is also the highest. So we need to feed it so it doesn't turn into aggravation. Because if we don't feed that high Pitta, when Pitta is highest in our body, then it will turn into an aggravation or an imbalance of Pitta, of even more Pitta. So we need to make sure that we're eating. Between 12 and 2 p.m. is when we should have our biggest meal, because that specifically is when our digestive fire is at its absolute strongest and we are able to break down our heaviest meal. So no, dinner should not be our heaviest meal. Lunch should be our heaviest meal. Breakfast and dinner should be definitely lighter. So kapha. Let's see, can I make this go away? Kapha is prevalent from about January to May in our environment. So these are the qualities of heavy, static, dull, and they increase this time of year. So we'll have, there can be that kind of lack of motivation or inspiration to do much. Like we just want to kind of sit on the couch, curl up, watch movies. That can happen for people with a lot of kapha in them, in their constitution. However, people with a lot of pitta in their constitution, in winter, they will thrive because they can actually move, because they're not being smothered by the heat of the summer. So it does depend on your constitution, but everyone's kapha will increase this time of year, and we can all experience more lethargy, depression, kind of heavy digestion. Things are moving a little sluggish. And so we want to increase mobile, light, and clear qualities in our food and our activities. So making sure that we do some sort of movement in the morning to help get things circulating and stimulated, to help break up the density of kapha is really helpful. Kapha is most prevalent between 6 to 10 a.m. and p.m. So 6 to 10 a.m. is when it's best to do all of our physical activities, because kapha is highest. And so we have the endurance and the fortitude to do all of this physical activity. And doing the physical activity is going to combat kapha's tendency to be lethargic and dull. So it's both what we are most designed to do between this time and also is a pacifier for aggravated kapha. 6 to 10 p.m. This is when kapha starts to set in and we are really, we're winding down. We're ready to get ready for bed. And we have those natural, heavy, slow qualities setting in that are setting the tone for bedtime and deep sleep. And so we want to honor that, go with the natural cycle, and go to bed. Okay. Need to move this. All right. So we talked about a lot of this, but we'll talk about the time of life in this. So Vata time of day, 2 to 6 p.m. is the best, or 2 to 6 a.m. is the best time for meditation, as we are closest to the etheric realm and more perceptive of it. We're more easily able to drop into this space as opposed to during the heavy kapha time of day or intense pitta time of day. The tendency of this time of day or night is to experience either insomnia or fatigue. And instead of reaching for that second or third cup of coffee, practices like yoga nidra or abhyanga are more suitable to restoring needed nourishment and energy. We sleep the lightest from 2 to 6 a.m. as Vata is highest here. Making sure to practice proper sleep hygiene routines will help ensure restful sleep during this time. Vata time of life starts around 55 to 60 until the end of our life. This time of life, we are closest to the ethers as we begin the new journey of nearing the end of our life. We become more subtle, light, and mobile, and this can show up in many ways, from insomnia, anxiety, and Parkinson's to increased spiritual interests and pursuits and increased creativity. Pitta time of day and life. This is the ideal time to eat our largest meal as our digestive fire is strongest this time of day. 10 to 2, preferably eating our largest meal between 12 and 2. This is when our minds are the sharpest and we are in analytical mode, working on projects. The tendency in this time of day, especially for those who have a lot of pitta in their constitution, is to overwork and to work through lunch. This is a sure way to create imbalance, and over time, chronic conditions may emerge. This is a good time of day to work on projects, but remember to take breaks, take a walk, listen to soothing music, and eat your lunch slowly and mindfully. Similarly, at night, 10 to 2 p.m. / moving into the a.m., Pitta comes back and we experience our second wind of energy. It is best to be in bed before this happens, though. The body's natural detox process starts at night around Pitta time, and if we allow the body to rest and detox, instead of starting another project, we will actually be supporting all of our body's functions in order to accomplish that project effectively the next day. The Pitta time of life starts around our early 20s all the way up through about 55 to 60. This is our time where we make our mark on the world. We establish a career and or a family. We are generally the most driven in the Pitta time of life. The Kapha time of day and life. Kapha time of day, 6 to 10 a.m. and p.m. In the morning, it's the best time to do our physical activity. And that's because as Kapha rules this time of day, our physical endurance is strongest here. The tendency would be to sleep in and to move slowly. But if we tap into Kapha's ability to be strong with lots of stamina, that balances the lethargic and dull qualities, and it sets the stage for our day. Likewise, at night, 6 to 10, our digestion starts to get weak as kapha sets in. It is best to have a light dinner because our digestive power is not working full force at this time. And we don't want to stress our digestive system when we go to bed. That will impair our detox process. In order to support the digestive system and the liver, having a light dinner early in the evening is one of the best things you can do to support healthy digestion, bowel movements, mood, sleep quality, and mental alertness for the next day. Kapha time of life is from birth to about adolescence. Kapha is responsible for building tissues and lubricating the body. This is a time of building, mentally, emotionally, and physically, as we grow into our bodies and minds and personalities. We tend to have a lot more mucus in the body this phase of life, but also a lot of endurance that is indicative of healthy kapha. Seasonal eating. I really love this concept in Ayurveda. So our diet should follow the seasons and our local cuisine. In order to thrive in the environment we live in, we should favor local and seasonal ingredients, as these are the foods that thrive in our environment. When we consume them, we are taking in the qualities that they contain that help them adapt and thrive in our environment. Likewise, we will then be better equipped to thrive in our environment as well. When we consume foods that are heavily processed, not local or seasonal to us, not only are we not giving our bodies what they really need to thrive in our personal environment, but there are many environmental and sustainable issues that go hand in hand with purchasing food that has been flown in from overseas. However, it's definitely not always possible to eat 100% local and seasonal. So don't worry if it's not possible all the time, because that's not realistic for many of us. Alas, when food is brought in from out of state or country, it inevitably has very low prana or life force, because it often has to have gone through such heavy processing that it killed the natural freshness and life force, or by the time it reached us, it is quite old and the lack of freshness remains. So fresh, local, organic food, as often as possible, will have more prana, it will have more life force, and it will have more nutrients. So as often as possible, eat local, eat seasonal, eat what is naturally in your environment. This is not to say that we should never eat a banana in Utah or a nectarine in Maine, but it is a good practice to be aware of these concepts and to favor as much as possible local and seasonal foods. Support farmers markets when possible, enjoy your environment's bounty, and reap the benefits of being in harmony with that which thrives around you. Local and seasonal foods are higher in sattvic qualities than non-local or processed foods. Sattvic food gives us more nourishment on a subtler level than the tamasic nature of foods that may feed us physically. Both aspects need to be acknowledged when choosing food and understanding its effect on us. So remember, sattva is one of the mahagunas. It's one of the qualities that exist in our psyche and our environments. And we're always aiming for increasing sattva, for eating foods that are sattvic, for creating an environment that's sattvic, for living a life that's sattvic, which is pure, harmonious, and digestible, that's full of prana. Tamasic foods are generally really heavy or old, so like canned food or frozen food. A seasonal and local diet should be favored, and always with an emphasis on your unique doshic requirements. So that is our slideshow. Let's go back. That's our slideshow on the Ayurvedic clock. If you have any questions, please bring them up to me the next time we meet. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.